Hey everybody, welcome to this week's topic, and we're going to be talking about UX design evaluation, and we're going to dive into some psychological aspects and accessibilities within HCI. Let's get started. So first, let's talk about the agenda. We're going to have some BAU conversation, and then we're going to jump right into UX design, and then we'll talk about some psychological aspects of HCI with accessibilities, and then we'll talk about the deliverables that are due this upcoming week. Cool. So let's dive right into business as usual. So for this week, I wanted to call out article number 5, article review number 5. So class average about this was for this one was about an 86.36. This was a last minute change. I know typically what I usually do is present an article and you guys evaluate it and then respond to classmates. This time I made you actually search for an article that's related to a topic within the course, and then afterwards you would evaluate other classmates' work. But so it was a little bit different this week. Expect something similar happening again in the future. I haven't decided when it's going to happen, but great work, everybody. I know it was a last minute change, so I appreciate everybody's understanding on it. Perfect. Let's dive right into it. So let's talk about the UX, user experience. So first, let's start off by defining what it means by user experience. So user experience, or UX as we'll call it too, is a reference to the overall experience a person has when interacting with a digital product, emphasizing ease of use, efficiency, and how satisfied they are with it. Now, contrast this with the human HCI, or HCI. It's a broader discipline that examines the relationship between humans and computers, focusing on design interaction systems that are efficient and enjoyable to use, as we talked about last week. Some of this material might be a repeat of last week's, so if you remember last week's conversation, some of this might be a refresher. It is critical to understand the significance of UX in the development of softwares and digital products. As a well-designed UX can drastically enhance a user's experience, or it could actually diminish it. Making a product not just functional, but also delightful to use is a key aspect of UX. This isn't just about aesthetics or how pretty or how nice something looks. It's about creating interfaces that users can navigate intuitively. So reflect on the evolution within the HCI. It began with a focus on it focused on uh, optimizing tasks and productivity, but it also since expanded and encompassed more emotional connections and experiences that we have with users. This shift mirrors the broader change in our digital world, recognizing that technology is not just a tool, but also a part of our daily lives and how we interact with this digital world. Next, we'll dive into some principles of UX design. So moving into some of the principles with UX design, we start with what is called a user-centric design, or a UCD, as we talked about last week. So UCD place the user at the forefront of the design process. This means that this means understanding and integrating the user's need and context from the outset, ensuring that the final product is truly resonates with the intended audience. So as we'll talk about later in the lecture, we'll talk about user feedback, we'll talk about surveys, but just ensuring that we are focused on the users and how they interact with the product. Next, we'll discuss about usability, as we also talked about last week. This is about making a product that is not just easy to use, but also effective and satisfying to use. Key to usability is the idea of some simplicity and intuitiveness. By conducting usability tests, designers can understand and uncover real-world challenges users face, enhancing the overall experience. Accessibility is another pillar that we've talked about before, and it can't be overlooked and it cannot be overemphasized. Designing for accessibility means ensuring that our digital products are used by everybody, including people with disabilities. This isn't just a legal requirement, it's also a moral implication and a business advantage. By adhering to guidelines like the WCAG, we create more inclusive products and broader our user base, enriching the user experience overall. Lastly, we talk about aesthetics and minimalist designs. It's a growing trend nowadays that everything is more it's minimal and it has to have some sort of aesthetics, as you can see with house designs, business designs, product designs. But these play a crucial role in our users' satisfaction. Meanwhile, a minimalist approach focuses on simplistic and removal of superficial elements. This principle guides us to design products that are not just only beautiful, but also pretty straightforward and easy to use. So now we talk about some aspects, some psychological aspects of UX design. I know you weren't intended to take a psychology class, but a lot of what UX has to deal with is some psychological sense, right? So when we turn our attention to psychological aspects of UX design, we start with the cognitive psychology. This is about understanding how users think and process information. It's crucial for creating interfaces that are intuitive and matches the user's natural thought process. By aligning our designs with the user's cognitive patterns, we make our products more intuitive and easy to use. Think about this by any products that you use that have a very straightforward usability of it, right? Something that can be done within a pattern. I can open up my iPhone and go straight to Instagram or LinkedIn without even looking at my phone. It's such an easy pattern because I know exactly where everything is because I've built this pattern and how easy it is to just simply do stuff. Next, we will dive into the emotional design. And in this one, we will talk about emotions. We'll talk about, I'll give an example of Apple. But before I get there, let's dive into more what emotional design is even about. So emotional design is about creating products that are elegantly possible, but are elegantly positive feelings in users, thereby enhancing the overall experience. It's not just about what the product does, but how it makes you feel. This can range between satisfying a satisfaction of completing a task with ease to the joy of discovering a delightful animation. Right? I'll use Apple as an example, is because a lot of what they have and a lot of their products are very aesthetic, and also they have this minimalist approach. But a lot of people don't buy Apple products just simply because Apple has the best technology, but because it actually makes you feel part of a community. And that could be by having all of the systems being integrated. So like the Macintosh with your phones, with your watch with your phone. It's a whole integration system, but it's the way it makes you feel, the way it's an ease. And sometimes, thinking about how sleek the product is can also be another adherence to how you feel about it. And then also there's marketing that Apple does. It pulls on the strings of our emotions. So Apple does a really great job at this. I'll give some more examples as we continue. And then we'll talk about like the psychology of color. As we know, color plays a crucial role in how people examine products. So there is a whole color chart. I should have laid it out here, but if you look online, there's a whole color chart about what certain colors can mean to organizations, right? So if you think of the color like yellow, yellow is more so seen as trustworthy, as as easy to use, delightful. If we look at other colors, so like if you think of any brand such as like if you look at red, red is usually associated with more of like dominance, power, and then there's a whole bunch of things. But and then there is also typography, typography. So the way things are, like the formats, the text, and the layouts. So color can invoke different emotions and reactions. Typography can also affect the readability and the mood, right? Depending on the actual text, you'll feel a certain way. If something is bolded, it's something that's adherent to your attention. And the layout plays a guidance to how our eyes are affected by understanding the information. So even this slide, having certain things bolded makes you understand, okay, this is a key point, and then the sub point is about a reference or a definition of the bullet point. So color, fonts, and the layout plays an important role of how it's designed. Usually digital products that don't meet these criteria usually fail, or you're not as interested, right? So a thoughtful design is in these areas can significantly impact the user's engagement and how satisfied they are with the product. So meta models are other crucial aspects. So these are the assumptions and expectations that users bring to the interactions with the product. By understanding and designing these mental models, we can create products that seems familiar to the users, making it easier for them to understand. Again, Apple does a really great job at this with the iPhone. It's a very straightforward uh, product. It's a very straightforward UI, right? It isn't too complicated. You're not doing a whole bunch of things. It's very straightforward, and compared to other phones on the market that you can do much more customizations. Apple's products you can't really customize as much, and for the normal consumer, this could be a good thing. It just depends on what you're looking for. Finally, we talk about persuasion design, and about the designing an element that influences users' behaviors in a way that aligns with the goal of both the user and product. I'll give an example on the next slide, but a company that does something really well, especially in the sense of digital products, is Amazon. Whether it's encouraging users to stay healthy, save money, stay safe online, persuasive design leverages psychological principles to nudge users towards beneficial behaviors. An example that I have here is this lawnmower right here. As you can see here, there's a lawnmower on Amazon. It does a really nice job showing me different angles, but that isn't the important part here. So Amazon persuades users to keep buying more by recommending alternative products and accessories, um, amplifying the way of, by persuading patterns by displaying customers who viewed this item also bought. So, what it actually really does is that this helps close the sale quickly. They can offer shoppers more ability to purchase items with just one click. As you see here, right? If you bought this lawnmower, sometimes they'll have like, oh, other people have bought a leaf blower, whatever the case may be, right? And you can simply just add it to your cart versus going and looking it up online. So Amazon does a really great job of trying to reel in customers and making it very simple and very easy to purchase a product. That's why you go on Amazon, just a few clicks and boom, something can come to your house pretty quickly, which wasn't really done in the past. So Amazon has done a great job with this persuasive design example that we have here. Next, we talk about UX research and evaluation methods. So with this one here, we'll talk about kind of some ideas and some ways that researchers within the UX world and researchers abroad can understand users. So it's important to distinguish between quantifying and quality. So I can't even speak. It's a difference to understand these two, right? So quantifying methods is like interviews and focuses on focus groups. It helps us understand the why behind user behaviors and preference. On the other hand, qualitative methods such as surveys, analytical, provides data on what the actions of the users are taking. So when we think about surveys, interviews, and focus groups, we think about how powerful these tools are for gathering insights directly from users. This allows us to explore the user's attitude, experience, and the needs in their own words, providing a deeper understanding of the experience as a whole. So there's a big difference here when we think about how, when we have these interactions with our customers or whatever it may be, we like to interview them and get insights. When we think of the data aspect of it, right? So you'll have somebody say one thing and do one thing, but at the end of the day, we want to see what is the end results, right? And this is the data-driven part of what the action is happening. So we can see an example back on the Amazon one is that people will tell about what they feel about certain products. That's why they have the reviews, or they may have different other aspects. They have focus groups, and they'll present it to these groups, and understand what their thinking is and why they do certain things. But at the end of the day, it's the data that really drives the decision making. And then there's some other tests here, as we discussed previously. The usability test is a cornerstone of the UX evaluation. So methods like think aloud protocols, where users verbalize their thought process as they use a product. heuristic evaluation, an expert review against usability principles, and an A/B testing. Comparing two versions of a product are essential for identifying, addressing usability issues. Um, these methods right here are, they deserve their own multiple slides. I'm just giving you a high level overview of these topics, but just note that this is a very surface level, and that certain concepts can be, you know, have their own dedicated class to it or their own dedicated um, week to learning these things. So don't feel that you need to know all of this right now, right? What I want you to understand is just kind of get familiarized with these terms. Another big one is the user persona and journey mapping. And these tools help us emphasize with the understanding of the users. So when we think about the persona are a fictional characters based on a real world data. So representing a different user type. So think about we use examples of like John Doe does X, Y, and Z, right? So this is a fictional character, but we're basing it on real data for us to understand the different types of users that we may encounter. User mapping visualizes the user's process through a product, highlighting pain points and opportunities for improvements. So think of like a flow chart in a way of, what does a customer do from point A to point B to point C, all the way down to point Z. And then within that, is there ways for opportunity? Is there bottlenecks? Are there things stopping a user from simply just buying the product? Do they have to go through this entire map? Or how Amazon does it, you look at a product, previously you would have to add it to a cart, check out, go through the whole form. But now Amazon simply does a one-stop shop where you can simply just buy the product with saved information. And then lastly, we use measurements and metrics such as the KPIs to evaluate UX. These can include measurements and measures of usability, such as error rates, task completion time, and as well as engagement metrics like conversion rates and retentions. By tracking these indicators, we can quantify the impact of our design decisions and continuously refine our products. Even anybody that has a website up, maybe you have not a business, but you have like similar to me, I have a nonprofit, right? My concerns are, is my website appealing enough, right? So when we think of like metrics, I can use Google Analytics to understand how long are my viewers coming in and staying within the site, or how, what are they clicking throughout the site? Is there some errors that they're running into that I need to fix? And we think of conversion rate. We think of if I had a shop and I was selling a product, right? How often does a user get onto the site, go through the motions, but doesn't actually buy the product versus what is the percentage of them that do? So a lot of cool methods, a lot of cool research behind this. And again, these methods themselves are very, I'm explaining them at a very high level, but they truly deserve their own time and just to explain them in more detail. So design thinking and prototyping. So for this one, so we'll explore the concept of design thinking and prototyping. It's essential to components of the UX design process. So design thinking is a human-centric approach to innovation that integrates the needs of the people, the possibility of technology, and the requirements for business success. It evaluates 5 phases. It emphasizes define, ideal, prototype, and test. So prototyping is a tangible way to bring our ideas to life. Rapid prototyping allows us to quickly create an iteration of our design, test it, refine it, refining our concepts based on a real world feedback. So this is another version of kind of saying what we call it in some industries, we call it the MVP. And the MVP is the most viable product, right? So how can you create something that isn't the final product, but kind of show something tangible, get some feedback, refine it, and continue that process. Tools and techniques are, they vary widely, from paper sketches to design mockups, allowing designers to choose the most effective methods for their projects. It's important to consider prototyping is in different lights, right? So we think of like fidelity. So low fidelity prototypes like paper models or basic wireframes are quick and cost efficient to produce, making them ideal for early stages testing or concepts and workflows. So high fidelity prototypes, on the other hand, are more detailed and closely resembles the final product, allowing for more accurate user testing on interactions and visual designs. So the iteration process of seeking users' feedback and making refinements is what we truly drive the design forward. As I mentioned before, you'll create something, right? You'll create an iteration, it will get reviewed, you'll get the feedback, and you continue to make improvements. So for each cycle of feedback and iteration brings us closer to the product that meets the user's need, solving their problems and provides an engagement and satisfying experience. So design thinking and prototyping are about embracing experimental, learning from failures, and continuously improving our designs. This approach is not only leads to more innovation solutions, but also creates a product that is truly resemblance with the users. So now let's talk about some real world UX. So I'll give an example of two of a successful UX design and an unsuccessful UX design. So let's dive into some real world applications of the principles we've just discussed today. So starting with a successful redesign of a major e-commerce platform. By focusing on simplifying the user's interface and introducing an AI-driven recommendation systems, this platform was able to personalize the shopping experience, leading to increased user engagement and significantly boosting sales. In this case, we understand that by eliminating the unused elements and the non-essential elements and actually redesigning it where we're more cleaner, more simplified, and adding features such as an AI-driven recommendation systems, similarly to how Amazon has it. This example can allow to more personalized recommendations, engagements amongst its users, and it boosts its experience. It boosts the sales by increasing that conversion rate, as we talked about earlier. So now, on the flip side, we have an example of a social media app update that missed the mark completely. So the update introduced an overcomplicated interface and removed features that were poor amongst their user base, leading to a widespread user backlash and notable drop in daily active users. So I would love to hear some examples if you have any, but some examples that you can think about is when something like Instagram rolls out a feature that basically nobody really asked for, but they just rolled it out, and they actually sometimes make the feature much more complicated. If you guys remember, Instagram used to have this thing. I think it was called collections. It was a collection of posts that you could have. I think that was the name of it. But basically, it was a feature that really nobody utilized. And it became this thing where it was just clutter. And what they did was actually roll it back and they just put it into a different area of the application that isn't so widely visible. I think it was called collections. I can't remember the name of it, or I think it was called journeys, or it was some feature that they released that nobody really asked for, and there was a lot of backlash. So not too long afterwards, they've actually rolled it back. But this example teaches us that the value of user feedback and the risk of making dramatic changes without adapting to user testing. So some other examples that I want to show is accessibility in action, ethical consideration in the UX design. And for accessibility is such a crucial aspect of UX design, right? So demonstrated by a video streaming service that implements closed captions, audio descriptions, and voice control features. These features can help a platform such as Netflix, Hulu, whatever it may be, attract more audience, right? This closed captions, I don't know about the rest of you, but I love to just have it sometimes, right? Because sometimes I can't hear what's happening or certain scenes, but it's always good to have that closed caption. And it's a lot more engaging, right? So these enhancements are not only made for services more inclusive for users with disabilities, but also expands to the reach of people that receive the positive feedback from the wider community. Finally, let's talk about ethical considerations in the UX design. And they're illustrated through the approach of fitness. We'll use an example of a fitness tracking app. towards user data privacy. By implementing a transparent data usage policy and giving users control over their data sharing preferences, this example app was able to build trust and foster loyalty amongst its user base, highlighting the importance of ethical practices built into a long-term user relationship. So see, these are just some examples provided within the lessons of UX design. From the needs of simplicity to the user feedback, from the need of user simplicity and user feedback to the importance of accessibility and ethical consideration. For each of these cases, each of these case examples, it offers an insight into the practical application and UX principles that impact the design decisions on the user satisfaction and the business outcomes. So here are just some additional resources that I want to show to you guys. If you want to learn more about UX and HCI, definitely here are some book recommendations. The Design of Everyday Thinking by Don Norman is an amazing book. I highly recommend it. Another book recommendation is Don't Make Me Think by Steve Kirk. I think these are phenomenal books. I actually started reading the Design of Everyday Thinking, and it actually just changes my perspective of how I design my own things for, nonprofit, for slides, for anything actually. And if you want to learn more about UX design as itself, right? There is a huge amount of material out there, and I just linked out some. Here is a HCI interactive course from Stanford University that's on YouTube, and it's fully free. It's pretty long, right? But it's very intensive, very knowledgeable. It's much more than what I can provide here. But if you're interested, please check it out. Some more examples and actually some certificates that you can get is some through Coursera. Meta has their own Principles of UX and UI Design course, and Google has one as well with the Google UX Design Professional Certificate. So if you like what you've learned so far and you want to learn more about it, I definitely recommend you check out these online resources through Coursera or through YouTube. I know the YouTube one is free. Coursera, I think there's some costs that are associated with it, but nothing that really can break the bank. But definitely use these resources if need be. Great, let's talk about some deliverables that we have for this week. Let's talk about it as SWOT analysis. As you guys know, from SWOT analysis 1, here are just some reminders. This one is due on March 10th, so this Sunday. Here are some ideas that you can take on. So remember to look at the discussion board. Make sure to look on what's off limit and what you can talk about. And there's also just some lesson learned as a reminder that I think I've added it within the rubric itself. But just some lessons learned from SWOT analysis 1 is the recommendation, right? So quality over quantity, right? You can write a whole bunch, but if the quality of it isn't that great, right, that definitely doesn't help you overall. So recommendation moving forward is to make sure that you do in-text citations, especially when you're using certain data, if you're mentioning a certain point. So make sure you do the in-text citations when you're doing these references. And just try to keep recording between 7 to 12 minutes max. Usually what I do, and I kind of use as a rule of thumb, right? Create notes, right? Create notes that you can read off of or that you can use to help you guide the conversations. If not, you're going to continue rambling on, and it just makes the video very long. So make sure to keep that in mind when you work on SWOT analysis 2. Also ensure to have a citation page at the end, just to ensure that you're referencing all the appropriate documents. And then the last one is the one-on-one meetings that is due on the 8th, actually. So I think the majority of people have done it, but if not, please schedule your time here, and let's try to get it through. I know I don't have it on March 10th on a Sunday, just because I keep Saturday, Sundays off limits. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, but please make sure you get this done before the deadline. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and I'm excited to see what's going on. Thank you, everybody. Take care.